You guys are good. Go right ahead.
All right. Let me get rid of that. Okay.
All right. Well, welcome to Feast or Famine, Surviving Feasts in the Modern Age.
I want to thank you for taking your time and hanging out with us for a little bit. Let's see. This is my husband, Sir Eric Firediver.
And this is my wife, nudge me. My wife, Signy Jólinnardóttir, Mistress Signy Jólinnardóttir.
We've been together a very long time, so forgive us if we come across funny. In fact, we were thinking about it, and I've been in the SCA for about 30 years.
And about 40 for me.
Which is a very long time. And we adore it and love it. And we have attended a lot of feasts and a lot of potlucks. And through the years, we've sort of developed our own feast etiquette. And we just feel that there's sort of a need for explaining what to anticipate for feasts and potlucks. It's not really out there. I mean, you kind of learn from other people, but I don't know, we just felt like putting something together. So did you want to say about our opinions?
Oh yeah, and we want to be very clear of this. We're about to share our ideas on feast etiquette. These are our opinions, purely 100%. There's no official, this is how it's done in anything. So different household and also different households that you may belong to may have different traditions and so on. So it's a good idea to ask questions regarding feast etiquette with your group within your SCA experience.
Yes. So we've also kind of created a brochure if anybody wants it afterwards. I'm sorry, I'm going to say autocrat. I apologize. I've event steward multiple feasts in my career. And I think you've been a head cook for
at least eight of them.
And so we have a lot of tips on how to actually like be the feastocrat and the autocrat. But we have all that written down. So if anybody is interested in that information, just send me or Sarah a line and we can send that out to you. We find that some people are really intimidated by being a head cook, and there's really a lot of things you can do to make it less intimidating and have a lot of fun. So there are a lot of different events that have meals in them as the main component.
And we're going to talk about 3 of them.
Yeah, yes, we are. Whether you like it or not. No.
Yep. The first one we'll talk about is of course a served feast. These are, events where food is brought out as one of the main events of the day, and the food is brought out to the tables and served usually from, family style, but the server takes it along and goes table to table with it.
And then there are potlucks. There are different types of potlucks, but in most potlucks, everybody's going to bring a dish, and it can be set up in various ways. And then there are other potlucks called poacher potlucks or poacher feasts. And this is where the group putting on the event is generally going to bring like the main entree or the main protein or whatever it is they want to bring. And then everybody else brings their dishes to go with that. I don't see as many of those as we used to, but they do occur still.
They still happen a lot up in Alicia, which is great. It's an awful fun day.
I suppose we should also say where we're from.
Oh yeah. We currently reside in the Shire of Ravenshore via Woodhull Passaic for 20-some years or more.
So I think we were going to talk about potlucks first. And we were going to ask how many of you have gone through a potluck line and not had any food when it's towards the end, but everybody's being nice and we can't see any faces. So we're going to assume it's happened to some of you. I know it's happened to us at various times. So one of the key things to think about making potlucks better for everyone, including yourself and your family, is to make sure when you go to a potluck that you remember that you bring enough food for your side dish. A lot of people will bring enough for like 3 or 4 people, and that's great. But really, a potluck dish should be able to serve about 10 people. 12 is better, but at least 10 people. At least that's what we've noticed. And if everybody that comes could bring a dish that large, then you're gonna have plenty of food for everybody and probably seconds for everybody.
And you may have to change slightly the way you make the dish. Like if it's a chicken dish, instead of leaving your chicken breasts in wholes or tenders, cut them up smaller so it's easier to take in individual portions.
Mm-hmm. And there's also a rule of thumb that we believe in. Again, this is our opinion. But if you come and you're coming as a group, and there's 4 or 5 adults or more coming, like maybe bring more than one potluck dish, because those folks are going to eat a lot more than a family with a couple kids. So it's really about making sure that we're bringing enough food for everybody to enjoy.
What's your serving sizes also?
This is his.
It's one of my pet peeves. I'm sorry about this, folks, but it's it's a tasting menu as far as I'm concerned. You get a small portion of a bunch of different items. And if you really like it, go home and get that or ask them for the recipe. Most people are very, very willing to share their recipes, but it shouldn't be a giant mound of whatever it is.
Leave some for everybody else.
Yeah,
is what we're saying.
Basically.
It's just about courtesy and politeness. And we have seen it on many occasions. People are excited. They're like, I'm getting in line. I'm going to get me some food. And it's like Thanksgiving and they've got this mound of food. Yep. Meanwhile, the last 10 people get like a pickle. So it's all about thinking about others and making sure that everybody can have a good time. You'll hear us say that again, probably, I'm sure.
If you can't afford to bring a potluck dish, and we've all been there during our younger parts of the SCA or our older parts of the SCA, it's fine. But if you can't bring food, go through the line last. Don't jump in the front of the line. Or you can ask the feastocrat or the autocrat if there's something you could do to help lower your cost of the feast.
Like then maybe you're volunteering, it's helping everybody involved, and you've still contributed something, and then you as a person, you don't have to feel bad if you go through the line if you didn't bring any food. So we've had people do that before, especially people don't know the luck, or it was all they could do to get there and they want to hang out with everybody, but they're hungry. The other thing, if you're bringing potluck dishes, make sure you bring appropriate utensils to serve the food. I don't know how many of you have been behind somebody trying to get rice out of a bowl with a fork. It takes forever. Or sometimes somebody puts all this time and effort into a dish and they don't bring a spoon, and nobody has a serving spoon, and then at the end of the event their dish is still there, and that's just really unfortunate.
And it just sends the wrong message. I've heard people say, well, nobody liked my food. Well, nobody could taste it because you didn't provide a spoon for them to serve it with.
I've seen that happen a couple of times.
Yeah, just a little bit of forethought makes it a more pleasant experience for everybody.
And I think sometimes people assume that there are dishes and things, serving things at these places where people are having potlucks, and when they're indoors, and that's not always the case. Sometimes the group has to pay more if they have to use those things. So just to remember that. And our last little suggestion, recommendation for potlucks is,
particularly for smaller potlucks.
Yeah, especially smaller potlucks, like 20 people or under, or 30 people or under. Focus more on actual like savory dishes, because otherwise what will happen is the first few people will go through the line getting all the savory dishes, and then everybody else will get dessert for dinner, which, let's face it, is fun, but it's not great, especially if it's the children that are getting that.
Yep.
And then the other people don't get desserts, and they're like, we didn't get any dessert. So we always err on the side of a savory dish, and if we're able to, we'll bring a second dish just to help out, we know sometimes people can't. So before we go on to serve feasts, we kind of were curious if anybody had questions, especially new people, maybe we've never attended a potluck.
Oh,
hi.
So I know you guys try very hard to keep it kind of in theme, but is it going to be considered de rigueur to bring like plastic containers? Because they're just so much easier to transport.
For sure.
That's a hard one, but for me, I'm okay with it. It kind of depends on the type, type of feast. So like if you're outside and it's a gathering and everybody's camping, I think people are less likely to be upset about that. Some people, though, when it's a potluck dish, they're really focused and they're like, we want everything to be Greek food, or I mean, it's possible. And we want things to be more period because that's what the event is about. Then you would need to try to put it in that way. But if that's not mentioned, I think.
And I'm a big believer in plastic for transportation, but I always bring something to transfer it into once we're there that's more period-esque.
Yeah. But I don't, people would rather have the food than have you not bring it because you don't have a serving dish to put it.
Yeah.
Right. Gotcha.
It's all about what you can bring. And if you, particularly for new people, don't stress it. It's fun. That's what you're there for.
Yeah.
And you shouldn't be stressed about what you can or can't bring.
Yeah.
I like to overbring.
Yeah.
Overbring is always better than underbring if you can. And there's just one more polite etiquette thing that when you are in line and you are looking at the food, maybe it's a good thing to keep some of your opinions. I'm not pointing this out to you directly. I mean, everybody. If you see something, you're like, I would never eat that. It's got raisins and cheese in it. That looks just keep that to yourself. Maybe tell somebody else later when you're not at the table, because I guarantee you the person who made it will be behind you. And that person will get offended and upset, rightly so. And it will ruin that event for them. So let's not do that. Let's keep those opinions to ourselves.
And it's best always to put a card or something with ingredients.
Yes. Excellent. Yes. We're going to talk about that a little later.
Gotcha.
Well, so we into serve feast, I guess.
Yeah. Well, no, I just.
We can. The potluck dishes, I always try to bring a printed card also that has my ingredients and, basically the recipe. If someone wants to sit there and jot it down, they're more than welcome to. But at least that way they know what's in it and what went into cooking it. And
it helps those with
allergies or special dietary needs to avoid some pitfalls that are out there. And be honest about it. Don't just say, if the recipe called for veggie stock and you got to put, a quarter cup of veg or a beef stock in it to bulk it out. That's what you had to do. List that.
Yeah.
We don't want anybody getting, traumatized by what they're eating if they find out later it had trace amounts of something in it
that they can't.
That could either make them sick or it's just against their beliefs to eat.
Yeah. Any other questions? Those are both great.
Yep.
I don't hear any other questions. Oh wait, I should check the chat. I do Zoom every day, so no. Okay. Oh, and Janessa, I'm so glad that you're listening. Thank you for coming.
I'm also checking the chat for you too. So if I see anything, that way you guys can focus, just so you
know. Good, that's nice. I wish somebody could do that for me at work. Okay. So
I'm about $30 an hour. I will totally do that for you.
All right. So the next portion, shall we say, of kind of etiquette that we've developed in our time in the SCA is information on served feasts. And this is it's less about, I guess it's etiquette across the board.
Yeah.
What we want to kind of share, because of our experience of hosting meals, feasts and served feasts, are some of the things that could actually go wrong, or really big pressures in the kitchen that most of us don't think about. And so, it's not uncommon for different things to happen that can impact the food that comes out. And I've definitely heard my share of complaints in the years I've attended feasts, especially serve feasts. And we thought we'd give a couple of reasons why things might not go as planned.
As someone that's done a bunch of served feasts and has autocrated a bunch of served feasts, this is just a tiny little snippet of things that can go wrong in the kitchen. That's going to either delay or compromise the texture of your food. You can't always put the blame all the way on the autocrat. They're showing up or head cook. They're showing up and they're cooking their heart out for you. And if it's not perfect, it's not at home. It's going to not be perfect. I guarantee it.
So
one of the first ones is stoves or ovens.
Oh. Gosh,
my biggest bane of existence. We've always rented Granges and that type of haul, and the appliances in the kitchen, they usually spring for a newer refrigerator, but you've got the old cooktop that was in there since 1950. And while they're workhorses, sometimes they have idiosyncrasies of their own. And, you know, I've had them just turn off in the middle on me, you know, blow out their own pilot lights, and you're cooking for 2 hours and suddenly you check it and your oven is lukewarm. It's, you know, that's just one of the things,
or it burns everything.
Or it burns everything because it's got a hot spot in the back that runs at like 500 degrees and the rest of the oven's supposed to be set at 350. Yeah, there's, you know, you got to cut people a little slack when they're doing this. It's a labor of love for most of them.
Yeah. Oh, water heaters.
Water heaters also for cleaning and for, you know, cleaning dishes right after the feast and stuff. A lot of these places don't have giant industrial water heaters. They've got, you know, what we have in our homes back in a closet somewhere 30 feet away. So it takes forever for the water to heat up. And then, you know, it takes very few people rinsing their plates and leaving the water run to exhaust the hot water supply. And that basically stalls everybody's cleanup.
Yeah.
So what we do is we just put it in a bag and bring it home. We scrape off our big stuff into a garbage receptacle, and then we don't even worry about washing it. We always have extra baggies in our feast kit or a tote. And that's where those dishes go, and they get just brought in and run to the dishwasher the next morning.
Yeah.
That way you're not causing any extra chaos in the kitchen for whoever's in there trying to nip the cleanup in the bud.
Mm-hmm. The other thing I think that's can make it difficult in the kitchen is, especially if this was maybe the first time you're being a head cook, is just the sheer amount of time it takes to heat things up. You know, especially if you got these huge pots of chicken or these big things of I mean, it takes hours. I was amazed the first time I helped him in the kitchen. And those are all things you need to plan. And if you're thinking, oh, well, it takes me an hour to make this dish at home, it'll take me an hour to make this dish, that's not going to be the case. So that's why sometimes things come out a little later.
Yep. Or have to be held for a little while because they actually finished up quicker than you anticipated.
Yeah.
You could try them as many times as you want at home, but the cook times are going to vary depending on the ovens.
Mm-hmm.
Back to those pesky ovens.
Those darn ovens.
Another thing is things that can go wrong in the kitchen is and I'm not pointing a finger at royalty, but you know, sometimes royalties, they come in and they want to do certain things in court. And it can affect your feast when suddenly they want to do removes and then a brief stint at court, and then another remove, and then another brief stint at court that actually runs really long. And it can get really hard for the cook, and it could compromise a lot of the, you know, we've all had the dry chicken come out of the kitchen. And there's a lot of reasons. It doesn't always have to be fingers pointed at the head cook. Just smile, eat your chicken, and go home
and know that, you know, they're doing the best they can in the kitchen. The other thing that can impact serve feast is not enough serving servers or enough servers or a lack of serving dishes. The list could go on. All that we want to really impress upon people is to be patient and to be respectful and to know that everyone is working really hard to make the event an amazing place. And the best thing we can do as people there, see if we can help, but also just to be polite and courteous and happy that everybody's out and about and not stuck at home like we were for 2 years. So we just say, you know, be patient and volunteer if you can. One of the things that people will sometimes ask is, you know, well, this doesn't feel like medieval food because they're not using medieval spices. And I'm going to let you talk about that. It's on your second page. Yeah.
Sorry. Volunteers, see if they need extra servers and extra help in the kitchen or help with cleanup. I don't know how many times I've served a feast and everybody goes home, and we've gotten really lucky a lot of times that we've been able to do our major cleanup on Sunday morning. But you know, there are places where at 9 o'clock you've got to be out of there. And the more hands that stay to help clean up, many hands make the work quick. That's a true statement I could say about cleanup after a feast.
Yeah. So what about medieval spices and food?
Oh, medieval spices and foods. Back to that. Sorry, I was going by heart. I always err on the side of medieval-esque. And that way people will enjoy the food. People leave the feast with a full belly going, that was good. Over 100% period spices. And you know, if you've tried the recipe yourself and you don't care for the spice in there, omit it.
Yeah.
And make it again. And you have to do that. You have to try your recipes beforehand to see what's going to fly with a mundane or contemporary palate.
And also there are some events where everything is, period, and that's great too.
That's wonderful.
And we're just saying that if you don't like that style of food, just be aware that sometimes that is served that way, and just be aware of that. And if you don't like it, maybe if they're going to be a certain way, maybe you don't go to that particular feast or that served feast, or you go and you just take small amounts and maybe actually find out that you like something that's different.
Yep.
It's possible.
Very possible.
We always make our son try something once, so we highly encourage everybody to try it once.
That's something that's gotten a lot more prevalent, I would say, of late. In past 15 years is food allergies. A lot more people are reporting them. They've figured out that's what's going on. And who's responsible? Me as a cook, from the feastocrating portion of it, if I will list components for every single recipe I make, and I'll be 100% honest on them, so there's no chance of it. I've gone through Serve It Safe several times, so I'll practice goods, the cleanliness and not contaminate. And but there's only so much you can do.
What do you mean? You mean as in there's only so many allergies you
could cook for.
You cook for.
Yeah,
otherwise you can't cook anything. I'm just clarifying that.
Yeah.
But there is, we've had people call ahead of time and say,
is there a vegan option?
Is there a vegan option? We actually always try to have vegan options because those are a bit easier than no gluten, although we've done no gluten too.
Yeah, and we just list all the ingredients. If we know that there are several people with the same allergy, as a feastocrat, I will try to find alternate recipes, or alternate, like for the main, when it's the big main course, I always try to find an option of vegetarian or vegan option for those people.
And it's okay if you have food allergies to reach out to the head cook and say, hey, is there any chance I can have your recipes? So because I have food allergies, most people are gonna be like, yeah, hey, here you go.
And dovetailing into that, if you do have serious food allergies, contact the feastocrat and the autocrat ahead of time and see if you can bring your own food. I mean, better safe than sorry when it comes to food allergies. And you may enjoy yourself a lot more having a full belly after, and then having to rely on what's actually available for you to eat coming out of the kitchen.
Yeah, it's also helpful for people who have young kids.
Who are
we always had extra food for when our son was younger, because we never knew when he was going to get hungry or if he was going to even want to eat any of the food in the feast, and so we just had extra food for him.
We call it table food, and we bring it and we put it out about midday, and we kind of graze on it for lunch, and then we put it away in proper refrigeration, and then we bring it back out and have it with the feast running concurrently, because it's nice to have a little nosh while you're sitting there waiting for your table's turn to go through the feast line or to get served. And I just think it adds to the medieval ambiance of it, having small finger foods and delicacies down on the table.
Yeah. Anything else?
That's how I feel about that.
So thank you, Hen.
Yeah.
So basically that's kind of our thought of most common things that we could think about for etiquette. We know there's not a ton of information out there for new people and what to expect. So I just was kind of curious if anybody had any questions about serve feasts or anything about what we've said in general.
Let us have it.
We're okay. We like talking, I guess. I don't hear me.
Can I jump in on this?
Sure.
One of the traditions we don't have in the West that I've seen in other kingdoms is when the feast is done. I'm going to use Trimaris as an example. By the way, the West is my 10th kingdom in the last almost 40 years. I'd love to see it come to the West, is when the feast is over and everybody's doing cleanup. In Trimaris, the squires would challenge each other to go and clean the kitchen.
Oh,
wow.
I like that.
And we would oftentimes decide that our beautiful tunics were not were not to be dirtied, so we would do it shirtless. Which got a very clean kitchen and usually a very happy clean kitchen crew.
There you go.
And you'd be amazed how many people want to come and make sure that kitchen is really clean.
There were so many pictures taken at cleanup last.
I don't know, but I'd really, and I've done it since we've been out here, is just volunteer to, hey, you guys been cooking all day, go sit down.
Yeah.
Yep.
Just take that step forward. I grab our dishes, I do our dishes real quick, hand them back to Breck, and then I jump in the kitchen and clean. It's not going to hurt me.
No,
and the kitchen crew is very grateful, and very often, not only do you get the hugs and the thank yous, but every now and again, there was some kitchen food set aside that was, something nice, and you're like, here, you should take this home with you.
I've done that. Hey,
yeah,
let's clean up. Here's some, here's a steak or whatever. I don't know. Here's some extra food.
Yeah.
From the other side, from the sitting a feast side, my real recommendation is, if you have the means and if you've got it, bring a full extra set of feast gear.
Yes, great point.
Because
very good point.
There's always somebody who's either new, didn't know, forgot something. I left that one bag sitting on the kitchen table when we packed. There's always something. And to speak to you guys, something comes out and people look at it and go, oh, I don't think I want to put that in my mouth. If you've got an extra bowl, you just kind of shift it off to the side and get ready for the next good thing coming out of the kitchen. So those are my pearls of wisdom.
I like those pearls of wisdom. Those are fabulous. And I have done that.
John Biev has a question.
Oh.
And it actually, this is a great question. And that's one of the first comments somebody made when I posted the class too. They went to their first feast and didn't know to bring their own feast gear. So she said, do you think we in the West need to be clear about the need to bring your own feast gear for newcomers?
Yes, probably.
Probably. In fact, it would probably be a good idea when local groups are having feasts to even put that in their page, when they're advertising for it.
Page copy.
And
Facebook posts and everything. Yeah, be sure to bring your own feast gear.
That's a very good point, especially for newer people.
It is. And where do you get feast gear? That's another hard trick is where do you actually get that first set of feast gear?
The dollar store has some stuff that looks hand turned.
Yeah.
It might be bright blue and slightly shiny, but it looks like.
Yeah.
So dollar store is a really, really great start for that kind of thing too. But also too, on that same line, is having with newcomers clothes. Maybe they can come right and participate with clothes.
Yeah, and depending on the group who's putting it on, some groups actually have their own gold key, and some don't. So well, maybe it's because I've been in too long, but I generally try to remember to bring like an extra outfit just in case somebody needs it.
And communicate. The more information you can pass out on your Facebook posts and your the calendar posts and stuff like that. It's only a few words, but it might save somebody some embarrassment or just ease their mind if they know, okay, bring my own feast gear, got it. And pretty soon it'll become habit and they'll just do it and they won't think again about it. But I remember what it was like to be new, and I assumed things would be provided that weren't necessarily.
Yep.
And it was a shock, and then I learned and started providing them for myself. And
well, back then you had to find things at garage sales. Now people, it's a little easier. You can go to Dollar Tree, or you can even find some
Amazon
things online now. But still, you don't have it right then. So in fact, the first thing that we purchased, his father was starting to come to events with was feast gear. Here's your feast gear. And he actually
a plate and a bowl and some utensils.
Yeah. So that was a great question. Thank you.
There was one time where I brought a dish, some Scottish cockaliki soup, to one of the Samhain events, and barely A1 it, and I was disappointed that it wasn't a
I'm
hint.
sorry.
See, that's the thing is, was it a serve feast? Was it a potluck?
Yeah, it was potluck.
Yeah. I've had dishes people have looked at and gone, I'm not going to try that. It's not fun and it makes you not want to do it again, but don't give up.
Yeah.
Bring it to another event.
Or try a different recipe if
yeah.
Just keep cooking. I love
Yeah.
cooking. That's
Yes.
my stress reliever, even though it's very stressful at times.
Doesn't make any sense.
I know, but it's what I do when I get stressed. And sometimes things don't come out.
Or they do, and it's just different than other people are expecting.
Or used to.
Yeah. But
And
don't get personal. It's okay. It's happened to others, and it'll probably happen again in the future.
Yep.
But don't give up.
and so the message is what is it? Oh, our dishes for potlucks are like a hit or miss.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
like at another Samhain, I brought some boiled cream blueberry custard tarts, and people ate the whole of one of them.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I thought, can't go wrong with desserts.
No.
No, which is probably
Why
why
people bring
a lot of people
desserts.
bring desserts, because everybody loves desserts and they're worried people may not like their main entree. But hey, you're disappearing. You can't lean back.
Nope.
I will say as well, for things like soups, not everybody has a bowl. If you've got a plate and you can't actually take the soup with you, because I tried to think about that last time. I was like, oh, soup's great because it's nice and warm, but if you have nothing to put it in,
And several courses of soup can be problematic also. I've gone to feasts where you've had 2 soup courses, and after a while most people own their own bowl. But what do you do when it's dirty with pumpkin soup and suddenly they want to bring you something else to put it in it? It's difficult at best. So you've got this big run on the kitchen to rinse bowls, and
That's a good point.
Yeah. So and that's just one of the other little, things when you're thinking of cooking a feast to think about. There are a lot of little things like that to think about, but we won't bore you with all those. But if you're interested, just let us know. We'll send you.
Yep, we'll send you everything we know about holding a feast.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
I know I kind of talked to you about this, and you're probably going to smack me when I see you in a few weeks. But there are times when people toast, right? And you and I kind of talked about it back and forth, like where I sort of know if there are going to be toasts. Nobody knows. It just kind of comes from out of nowhere. People do it. But most of the time where I have seen, it starts in highest OP order.
Yes.
Like one time I was sitting next to Vera, and I nudged her and she was like, what? We're toasting? What?
Yeah.
You have a very different experience with that.
I think that's a rough one, only in that I say that depending on who the hosting group is can depend on the answer being different.
And the level of etiquette that they want.
Yeah. But I do, at any point, if you're at a feast and there's royalty, they're generally the ones who start off the toasting. But I don't think, if it's I don't know, maybe you ask like, hey, I want to give a toast. That's a good question.
If it's midway through the feast and nobody's done a toast, as far as I'm concerned, fair game.
Yeah.
You don't toast the crowd. Get it started.
Yeah. I've seen people do that.
Yeah.
I know up here locally in Raven Shore, Alicia, Woodhull, Passaic, we didn't ever really do a lot of precedent other than if there was the Baron and Baroness were there. But I do know some groups are very strong in that it needs to be in the order of precedence. But I would think that most likely if you were in that group, you would know that.
Or if you're joining a group, ask what their etiquette is regarding different things. If you've communication again is just key.
Yeah. William, what's your experience with toasting?
Western tradition is at the senior peer.
Yeah.
And believe me, there are big conversations sometimes. You outrank me. No, I don't. You got, and then somebody goes, no, I guess it's me. And that's the Western tradition, and it's tradition in a few other kingdoms, is that the most senior peer toasts the king and the queen,
Yes.
or prince and princess. It's usually the king and the queen. And from there, toasts can go. Some places have toasting traditions.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody, including the kitchen cat, gets a toast.
Yep.
And there are some traditions, like the West is primarily the king and queen. And then if you're at a principality event, the prince and princess, any visiting nobles. And if you're at a baronial event, you take it all the way down to the baronial seats.
Mm-hmm.
But beyond that, we don't really have a toasting tradition here in the West.
Mm-hmm. Does that answer your question, Sarah?
Oh, now she's gone.
Actually, this is Genevieve. This is Genevieve. I'm super old. And I would say, like, particularly like hanging out with Paul Bellatrix and that there is a tradition. I don't know if it's fallen out in the West, and it's pretty much what people were saying, right? But you work it out beforehand. You don't just try to figure it out on the fly, right? If you're gonna do it,
for sure,
you figure it out, and then the end is always to absent friends.
Yes.
So anyway, that was my 2 cents.
Yeah,
no, that's excellent.
You know, like we said, these are just our opinions. They're
And
not-
our observations.
and our observations. So we haven't been to a lot of feasts where there were a significant amount of royalty.
Yeah, usually it's, the king or queen or the prince and princess come up to one of our smaller feast events in the wintertime, and it's pretty easy when there's only one set of hats in the area to have to focus on. And
we know that. Yeah, we take the Baron and Baroness lead and go from there. So thank you for your insight. Any other questions?
I'm just wondering too, we can't even just tell a newcomer. I'm very aware of you're just supposed to know culture. So is there, I don't know, sites where people could get pointed to? It's like, feast gear consists of this. And if you just have to bring something from home, you're good. Don't worry about it. But, it's a cup, a bowl, a plate.
the Gnome World Handbook used to be really good for that.
Yeah.
That was back in the 80s and stuff. I recommended it to how many.
Do they still do that?
I don't know if they do the Gnome World Handbook anymore, but it had stuff, the basic things in it, like what you needed for feast gear. And
William, you're on mute, I think.
I'm good. I'm talking to myself.
Oh.
Nobody else listens to me, so.
I think it's a great idea. I honestly don't know if there's anything out there like that, but there should be.
yeah, there definitely should be.
I know there's a website for like newcomers, so maybe it could be put on there somewhere. Not a website, but a link, for people who are new to look at. That's a really good idea.
And again, can't stress it enough, communication. Most autocrats don't, or feastocrats don't mind a phone call, quick phone call. Hey,
Yeah.
does
Or
blah
email.
blah blah, or an email. I know I'm
It's-
showing my age. What? Teletype or
We can always, we don't do it in the West, but newcomer classes can always cover this too.
Yeah.
That's
I can poke Celia. I don't know. She's the only person I know giving a class anytime soon, which will be at 12th night,
Oh, nice.
9 o'clock in the morning, preceded by how to talk to newcomers.
Oh,
Nice.
I like it.
Because I don't know how to talk to people. So if you some of us who have been around a while, may I suggest you pop into a newcomers class every now and again,
Yeah.
and not to critique or to interrupt, but to maybe remind yourself what we take for granted, people don't know.
Yes.
We know our traditions. We know this is how an event's supposed to run. We know how court works, and we know when they say these things are happening, or about this time of day at this event, this thing happens. That's because we've done it since Christ was a corporal and rocks were soft.
It's so true. Yeah, it's true. Yeah.
We forget what we forget what we've learned by absorption, and feasting and feast etiquette is one of those things that you just get exposed to, and you probably mess it up 3 or 4 times until you get it. And thank you guys for giving us the I don't want to put my foot in my mouth speech. I appreciate it.
No, it's great. And you know what we're really hoping for is it's just a beginning conversation, right? If anybody out there wants to know more, we can figure that out. We can find a person that might know more. And we know it's hard for newer people. And we just felt that it was time to say about some of the things that we've noticed through the years and how to make it better. It's always about how to make it better for everyone, and not, making people feel left out.
Right. And it's not always newcomers.
Yeah.
I've seen peers make some of the most horrible social gaffes.
Yeah, sometimes we need to be reminded.
Yep. That's a good point, William.
Big thing is treat each other with some mercy and some kindness.
Yes. And patience.
We're family, sometimes whether we like it or not.
Yep.
Even Sarah.
Don't loop me in with all you. Don't worry about me.
I love you, Sarah.
I love you.
Okay, well, if there aren't any more questions, I don't know what Sarah wants to do. Do you want us to vamp for 15 minutes?
Well, usually my go-to answer is this is your time to tap dance. And
Yeah, no.
Yeah, I got one. No.
If nobody else has questions, I mean, we can end the recording, and then everybody can stay and BS for a few. That's also fun.
Yeah, definitely. Sure. I just wanted to know if we were done so I could go check on Tait.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yep. All in the recording. Easy peasy lemon squeezy.